I'm recording right now. So go ahead and take it away, Bonnie.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen that has the PowerPoint on it. Yes, indeedy, it did 5 seconds ago. So let me do this. Oh, this is it. Okay. And then I'm at the end. No, I want to be at the beginning.
But I can see your screen, so that's something.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, slideshow from the beginning. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. And if anyone hops on afterwards, they can watch the recording, and I will be sharing the slides and some attachments. First of all, thank you for volunteering to help the Human Service Alliance. And we're going to talk today about the grant review process for the ARPA grant. And ARPA stands for American Rescue Program Act. It was a federal grant that was given to each state, and then the states then shared among the localities within each state. So I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then I'll show you and tell you some background information. I'm going to tell you about the Human Services Alliance and how we came to be, and how we're working with the county, how the review process works, what we're looking for, what you'll be looking for in the applications, what we need for you to do as reviewers, and then the scoring criteria. And then Meredith is going to take it away with how the grant portal works. So the Alliance is what, Chelsea, 3 years old now. It was a process that Prince William County government went through a 2-year assessment of community input to successfully reach goals in their strategic plan. We promote collaboration, coordination, and communication, advocacy, and access to resources amongst both traditional and non-traditional human service providers. Prince William County, Manassas and Manassas Park is our service area, although Manassas and Manassas Park got their own ARPA money, so we're not serving them with this grant. I wanted to just point out a little bit what we mean by non-traditional human service providers. So think Rotary, the Lions, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts. They're not the typical, what you think of as traditional human service providers, but they do provide human service and services and serve the public. Our core funding is provided by member dues, a generous grant from Prince William County, and other fundraising efforts. The founding board of directors represent nonprofit and faith-based organizations from, and Prince William County goes diagonally. So we have what we call the East End and the West End and Mid-County. So we have representation from the entire county. And now I'm going to get to the meat of the matter, our ARPA grant. In January, just last month, 2 months ago now, the county voted to allocate $10 million of the American Rescue Plan Act funds to the Alliance in order for us to distribute the funds to nonprofit organizations that serve Prince William County residents. This round, we're going to distribute $6 million, and the remainder will be another grant process in 2023. And I have to keep moving our faces so I can see my stuff. There we go. That's better. So funds must support projects that address COVID recovery service categories. This is kind of what the focus area is, And what you'll be looking for when you're reviewing the grant applications to make sure that these are the things that the organizations who are applying are going to be covering. Where it says navigation and application support for rent and mortgage assistance, instead of our organization spending all of their money, which would quickly be gone, giving direct assistance for rent and mortgage assistance, the state got a boatload of money. That's a technical term, a boatload of money. And we're hoping that organizations will help their clients navigate, because the state has capabilities to provide support for longer and additional resources that they can tap into. So we're not looking at a lot of direct assistance, although it is allowable, but kind of as the method of last resort. What we're looking for, what you'll be looking for in the grant application. So who can grant partners serve with the ARPA funds? They must be Prince William County residents. We have a couple of zip codes that cross into Manassas and Manassas Park, but this money is for Prince William County residents. The cities both got their own funding. Clients must be income eligible at the federal poverty guideline. And this is in reaction or in support of the negative economic impacts caused by COVID-19. So nonprofits do a lot of really cool stuff, but in this case, their project has got to relate back to COVID and the corresponding shutdowns and shortfalls that were caused by the pandemic. And I say that it sounds like it's over. You know, it's not over. We're still getting through. If you want to find out, this is from our website. So additional information about the ARPA funding, I've highlighted ones that I think you'd be most interested in. The slides, I don't think you need to see the project budget templates that the applicants are going to use, but slides from our grant information session that we provided to applicants, kind of what you can do, what you can't do. I've just briefly gone over with you. The Prince William County ARPA website, which will have lots of information, maybe more than you want to delve into. And then I'm going to also send this as a handout, our ARPA equity handout. We're trying to apply an equity lens to make sure that we're serving those who are most in need. So when we get into the grant and what you'll be looking at as scoring criteria, something to keep in mind is grants are to address unmet needs. And the project that you're reviewing should be specific. It should have some kind of a goal that it's trying to achieve. There should be some measuring component to it. How will they know if they're successful? It should be attainable and realistic, and there's a time boundary. In this case, they have to have the money spent by December of 2024. So those are things just to keep in mind while you're reviewing. Scoring the projects. The amount requested should be in the grant with the program budget. How the organization is currently responding to needs of Prince William County residents. This grant money is not seed money to start a new nonprofit or create, I don't want to say not create a new program, because suppose a food pantry decides that maybe they're going to ramp up a childcare program. Well, if they can partner with somebody and they can pull that off and they illustrate that within the grant, that's okay. So collaborative partnerships are innovative measures that the organization will use to execute their program. And how are they going to measure their results? I'm not going to read each bullet point, but they're going to have to demonstrate engagement with the community and illustrate ways that they're going to spend this money to achieve their goal, and that their proposed outcomes and objectives are clearly stated and are measurable, and how the project is going to produce equitable outcomes in its service delivery. Applying the equity lens, we're particularly looking at proposals that are going to help with people with barriers to employment who face negative economic impacts. We know that COVID disproportionately affected people who were already kind of in that margin of making it and having employment. These were not people who were, we were all affected. Some of us were more affected. I would say it that way. It's kind of like when there's a flood. You know, the people who could least afford to deal with such a thing are the ones that are most affected. Our scoring criteria, and this is going to be how the portal that Meredith is going to show you has the criteria laid out. The project alignment, remember, it must be COVID related. The project must meet an unmet need. It must demonstrate the use of funds. It must illustrate the organization's financial health, their capacity to perform the project that they say they're going to do, what the impact on the community will be, how they're trying to make it equitable to all involved. And then there's qualified census tracts and high food insecurity zip codes, which those will be extra points that organizations can score if they're serving those particular areas that have been designated as highest need. So here's the methodology. I am not going to read all of this to you because you can read and you can go back and you can look at this. But it talks about how we're going to randomly assign the proposals to reviewers. You will review them independently, and then we'll come back together with your scores. And when you've completed scoring the project proposal assigned, you will have an opportunity. We can, if desired, put together a Zoom meeting for reviewers. And once you enter them in the Foundant platform, it will rank the scores from the highest to the lowest. Take some of that work out of it for us. And here's some more explanation of how this really cool portal that you all are going to love is going to aggregate the scores and provide us with a weighted master ranking. And this just goes into detail of what happens next and what happens next. One of the things that you all, when you registered on Foundant, there was a question in there about conflicts of interest. And you may not know if you have a conflict of interest until we know everybody who's going to apply for the grant. So that question is going to come up again once we have those names and can ask you if you are in any way affiliated with any of our grant partners. I'm kind of stopping so you can read a little bit, but I'm going to move on and you can continue reading when I send out the slides. You also will have the opportunity, after you've done the ranking, to recommend whether you feel the proposal should be awarded in full or partially. You might think, based on the information they provide, that they could do this project for 2/3 of what they're asking for, and maybe they didn't convince you that they needed as much as they're asking for, and you might recommend a partial funding. So applicants will be sent their grant certification. These are the proposals that you'll be scoring. If they are chosen, they will get a certification agreement and a letter to confirm their willingness to adhere to our reporting guidelines. And we'll make arrangements for their fund disbursement, and those organizations will be required to attend a mandatory reporting training so that they can tell us that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it's going to make more sense to you once you see the portal. And I see we've got somebody in chat. Oh, okay. And does anyone, I know I blew through that really quickly, and there was quite a bit there that you'll have an opportunity to read, but does anybody have a question I can address right now? And I think you're all muted, so will you put it in chat?
It won't be the last time that you have opportunities to ask questions, just so you know. So if you need to have a little bit of sync time, no pressure on that.
Okay. Not seeing anything, so whoops, we've got one, and that was how many reviewers are participating. Right now we've got 6 who say they will, but 3 more who told me they wanted to, and we haven't quite connected yet. All right, well, I'm clicking on slides and they're not moving. There we go. So the Human Services Alliance of Greater Prince William has a Twitter account, Facebook account, and you need to sign up for our newsletter to find out what's going on with all your favorite nonprofits. So follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, visit our website, and stay in touch. And thank you for participating. And as a volunteer, thank you for your donation of your precious time. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. So I thought Dr. King would be a good way to finish that. And I'll stop sharing, Meredith, so you can go in there. And I know I blew through that stuff fast, but you will be able to go back and read the methodology. And we do have some handouts, and there were some links in there too to more information.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bonnie, for handing this over. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now too, or instead. Is everybody seeing a red bar across the screen right now? Fantastic. So to introduce myself, my name is Meredith Morgan. I'm the Client Success Manager working with the Human Services Alliance from Foundant Technologies, which is the system that you all will be doing your reviews in. So ultimately, before we hop into training, I just want to shout out the work that Bonnie and Chelsea have been doing as far as getting this site up and running. They are ultimately going to be the experts in how to navigate through the system. They've gone through a lot of training on this, and if you have questions that come up, you can absolutely reach out to either of them. Probably Bonnie's the best person to ask as far as technical questions, and if she's not able to answer you, if you come to her with a little bit of a stumper, we're here to have her back and make sure that you guys get the information you need to keep moving forward in the system. So to hop into what you're seeing here on my screen right now, this is going to be the view that you'll see once Bonnie has taken the submissions that you all have completed as applicants. She's going to go ahead and give you an extra role in the system, which is a staff evaluator role. Right now, you can sort of toggle in between being an applicant and a staff evaluator in this view. To complete the evaluations, you'll want to be in as a staff evaluator. If you want to revisit the conflict of interest agreement that you submitted earlier to register in the system, you'll be able to do that under the applicant role. Okay. So this is the evaluator dashboard. It's going to look a little different than what you've experienced as far as having gone in to submit that initial registration form. This is ultimately what we're seeing here, a list of assigned requests, 3 different requests on this that have been assigned to staff evaluator to go ahead and review. This view that we're seeing right at the top, the red bar that I think is the most prominent thing that you can see on this page. This is basically a status gauge that is going to show you how many requests you have to evaluate, as well as what the statuses are. Right now, none of these 3 requests have been started as far as the review process goes, so they're all in the pending state, which is red. There are 3 other statuses that you might see here. There's draft, which will turn the status gauge yellow, complete will turn it green, and then closed will be gray. So that's something where ultimately, up until you get to the closed status, you can come back in and adjust your scoring at any time. But once you see that the request is in a gray closed status, that's where things are locked down. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by clicking into to start one of these requests. Basically, the way that this is going to work, there's going to be language associated with starting something off or coming back in to revisit it. I tend to encourage people to think about the color scheme of the status gauge matching up with the icon next to each row of the table. So if I go for red to red, that's going to be, I think, the easiest way to visualize this. So we'll start reviewing our first request that we have in here submitted by Douglas Smith over at the Covenant House. Clicking on Start takes us into a view of the evaluation form as well as the application form. So evaluation form is your work to do. Application is what has been submitted and what you're reviewing right in here. You'll see that these 2 forms are separated by this dotted line. Ultimately, you're going to be able to resize how much of the screen is being taken up by each form. So as you're going through and reading, if you want a little bit more screen real estate, you can drag the line over to really focus on the evaluation. And then likewise, you can go ahead and pull it back over when you're ready to actually start the scoring. Similarly, if this left-right format isn't working for the way that your brain works, you can go ahead and click on these 2 arrows up here, and that's going to swap them back and forth. So you can feel free to make this layout work for you. So I've put it back to the default here with the application on the right-hand side. Things to look at as far as what you're going to expect to see in the application. I've got a bunch of lorem ipsum text in here, so obviously you should expect to see something not in Latin. That's the first step here. You're going to see a lot of questions that are ultimately narrative questions, big open-ended text boxes like this, which are fairly intuitive for how you interact with them. Things to note as you're scanning through, you're also going to get further down to see some of the other questions that that might actually be uploads of files. These like this project budget upload that you're seeing right here, you can go ahead and take a look at it by scrolling through the application and clicking on the eye icon as you're going through it. That will pull up just that project budget form right here, and you'll be able to see on the screen what it looks like. You can zoom in, rotated it if it's been scanned in a way that the layout's not great, and download it to your device if it's actually easier for you to do it that way. So in addition to being able to access those uploads within the inline view of the application, you're also going to be able to look at them in their totality up here on the document viewer. So that's something where at the very beginning of the form, you basically see all the potential uploads here, and you can zip through them and see what you want to see there. This is ultimately the same document that I've used to upload here for this sample request, but you would expect to see probably a spreadsheet and then maybe an audit, maybe a PDF, something like that there. The mechanisms of the site are pretty simple. I think you're going to find it fairly intuitive to go through and read these different things. If you find, though, that you'd rather actually be looking at this not on a screen, but rather in a PDF format, you can also go ahead and click on this application button, application packet button, excuse me, right next to the document viewer. And this will generate a PDF of the application for you to go ahead and print off if you want to, scan through it and be able to actually read it in a paper file if that's more your speed. When it comes time to actually going through and completing the review, the form that you have to do for the work here, this is something where, as Bonnie mentioned, first things first is going to be the question, do you have a conflict of interest with this organization? As you're going through and reviewing these, the format is going to look very similar. So if you're on to the next form and you can't remember who you're reviewing, which, it happens if you're looking at more than 3 of these, it's easy to have happen. You can scroll up to the top, and here we're going to see all of the information about the organization that has submitted this application, as well as the individual who actually wrote up the application. So a good resource here for you to know that information about whose application it is at the top of the page. Scrolling into the evaluation form, the bulk of the questions that you're going to be using here will be scoring questions, as you see here. And Bonnie alluded to some of the detail around how you want to be thinking about these in terms of SMART goals, the other pieces that you'll see on the PDF when she sends that out with the recording of this as well. In here, you're also seeing as far as what the unmet need associated with COVID-19 is, you're going to see a breakdown of what each point value on that scale means in terms of where we're thinking about, does it meet expectations, does it exceed expectations, so on and so forth. The scales on these questions vary. So you'll see some are 10 points, some are 15 points. We have a couple of 5 points down here. These ultimately are indicative of the value of those questions, so that total score that Bonnie mentioned earlier is going to take a look at what's available here. If it's a 5-point scale, that's going to be worth a little bit less than a high score on this 15-point scale. And that's how that score is going to be generated. A couple of more basic things to note here. When you see the bolded text here, unmet needs, general, use of funds, clarity, that's going to be the beginning of a new question. And when there's an asterisk next to that, it's required. You have to answer it in order to actually get to the point of the application review having been considered complete by the system. So important for you to note as you're going through these. The final piece to talk about, because we've got a lot of these sort of similar scoring questions, we got into some of the bonus points. Bonnie mentioned those earlier. The bonus points are going to be dealt with a little bit differently. So when you're looking at all of your requests under consideration, the bonus points won't be factored in. That's something that will be applied later on in a report. So you can look at the scores that are generated in the system and know that those are all on an even playing field, and bonus points will be assessed later. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top here and sort of navigate through this. We see here there's a broken image. That's something that I'll be dealing with after our call to fix that. But ultimately, I'm going to go through and just hit all of these questions that are required and make sure that I'm answering them in this instance. Being pretty favorable to Covenant House. And that's something that, again, if I decide maybe I was being a little overly generous after reviewing some of the other requests, I can come back in here and modify these as needed. So skipping on down through here, let's say a yes and a no to that. And then I want to fund this at the full amount. This optional question at the end, everything else up until here has been required. This is an area for you to go ahead and capture any notes. Primarily, you want to use this as a reference for yourself. What do I need to remember if we do end up having a discussion? What do I want to point out about why I like this request so much? Or what are my concerns? Whatever is going to be helpful to future you down the road. So here, at the very bottom of the form, we have the option to save the evaluation. As I'm clicking through, I want you to know also, when you click from one question to the next, the system does automatically save. I like the security blanket of saving an extra step here, though. So this save button is always kind of a thing that I think of as a friend. But if your internet happens to crash when you're in the process of going through and filling out that evaluation form, when you're able to get back online, you'll see that a lot of your work has been saved. So it's a nice reassuring thing to know right there. So at this point, I can see I'm on the confirmation page. I see that the evaluation has been saved. I have this extra blue box down here that's saying that I neglected to answer one of the key questions. So I'm going to go ahead and return to the evaluation. This is one of the required questions I had to answer. I'll return to the evaluation and go ahead and say, nope, I don't actually have a conflict of interest on that one. That's the only required question I missed. So I can go ahead and hop back down to save. And here now we just have the green bar that my evaluation has been saved. When I return to the dashboard, which I can do either with this button or by clicking on the home icon up here, I'll see that instead of having a fully red bar, we have now one complete application in here. And I can come back in and update it as I need to. Here, we'll also see that the total score that I've given this is 81%, not factoring in those bonus points that are available. If you miss one of the required questions, this score is not going to calculate. So you do need to hit all of those required questions in order to see what the final score is. So I want to hop back in, show you this again, sort of like slow down a little bit and show you what the clicks look like. So I've completed one review for Covenant House. I'm going to go into Feeding America and see Teresa Kim's application, how that looks. So as I said before, this is something where you can go through and say, I am reviewing the application. I'm going through and gradually making the determinations about where I think the score ought to land. And as I'm clicking away from questions here like this, the system is saving. So every time I click away from a question, the system is saved. If, for example, you end up getting interrupted, so there's a knock at the door, the phone rings, you can actually, the save button down at the bottom, you can trust that this will actually save without hitting that save button at the bottom. So here, if I go back and I don't go through saving it and I just click on the home button, here on the dashboard, I see that I've got one request in draft, and I can go back in and continue that by following the yellow to open that back up. And it's going to take me right back to where I was before. So all of my work has been saved there. A couple of things to note. If I go through and save this through the save button down at the bottom to take me back over to the confirmation page, here we can see I've missed a lot of those required questions. I could go ahead and skip through to, rather than going to return to the dashboard or return to the evaluation form that I was just working on. I can go ahead and skip over to the next one if I want and hop right in there and go on in that way. This is the sort of workflow where you're going to find that you really want to come back up and see, oh, I'm not looking at, I don't even remember what the organization was, but I'm looking at a new organization now. It's City of Hope, not Food Pantry or Feeding America rather anymore. So that's definitely go back to the top of the page to see where you are in your review process. I want to talk about the dashboard a little bit now that we have some variation appearing here. We've got the 3 different statuses. Red, yellow, green, bright colors mean that you can make changes as you need to. So for example, thinking about our Covenant House submission, we can go in here and say, you know, that actually was much better than I was thinking about for their unmet need in the COVID-19 category. And at this point, when I go back home, the system will have automatically updated that from 81% to 85%. A cool thing about what we see here on this dashboard is that you can go ahead and sort by any of the columns that you see in this table. So we can go ahead and say, I want to sort this in alphabetical order. Once you have your scores generated here, even better, you'll be able to sort these from highest to lowest or lowest to highest so that you can really see, you know, Covenant House was knocking it out of the park. I had a little bit of concern about City of Hope. I think that this is really my top pick as far as what I've reviewed at this point. And again, it can be something where when we're looking at more than 3 requests, it can be really helpful to be able to sort these alphabetically by organization name or maybe applicant last name so that you can have some sort of sense of order of what you're looking at. Another point that's worth looking at here, when you're looking at this status gauge, it's not just a handy status gauge in terms of looking at the pretty colors. It's also going to be helpful for you to be able to filter out. If you just want to see what have I not started at all, you can click on each of the colors and have that be something where we'll see this is what we have in draft. These are the ones that we have done, and you can get rid of the noise of everything else and just focus on what do I have left to do potentially. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this quick search and bring all 3 requests back up. A couple of final things to talk about here for your reference. When we're looking at the dashboard, there are also some useful links to look at up here. If you need to go over to the HSA's website, as Bonnie alluded to earlier, you can go ahead and click on the logo, and that's going to pull you right over there to their homepage. So that's sort of a shortcut for you to navigate into some of those materials that she's shared on the PowerPoint. The home icon I mentioned, that's how you always get back to this dashboard page, which is essentially the home page. It's going to follow you throughout the site. So wherever you are, you can click any link in the site. And if you get lost, you can always go home and bring yourself back to that dashboard. The last piece is this shared documents folder. This is ultimately a place where Bonnie and Chelsea may opt to go ahead and share information with you. So we haven't actually talked about this in terms of thinking about potential meetings after you guys have completed your evaluations, but to throw it out there, this could be a helpful place to share a report with you showing the scores, factoring in those bonus points so that you can see where are we at with this? How are these decisions being made? And really use that to fuel your conversation if you choose to have one. So this is basically the overview of the site. I think you're going to find it pretty intuitive. At this point, who has questions for me? I'm sure there's got to be some questions in the group. I've seen some come in through chat. Oh, it's actually Chelsea. Hi, Chelsea. Okay. It looks like Sari's having some issues with the login. If anybody wants to take themselves off mute, you're welcome to do that, to ask questions to the group.
I think Sari got off of the call, but she is a Foundant user in her job. And while she was trying to log in, it just kept logging her into her capacity at work, and she wasn't able to log into our grant reviewer side of things. Do you have any suggestions how she can do a do-around for that?
I think I need to actually look at that in more detail with what specifically she's encountering. It sounds like she has not completed the volunteer panel application. Is that right?
Correct, because it kept taking her to her work login, and I think she tried to make another account with her personal email, but it kept
we should
her.
troubleshoot that. You and I, Bonnie, I just looked at Chelsea and thought, I'm going to call you Chelsea, which I know is not right, but we should look at that together. I will figure out what's going on for Sari, and then I don't want to wreck it for anybody else as far as confusing anybody else on the team or on the call right now about something that they've already gone through.
Okay.
Are there any questions about the overall workflow that you'll be taking as you go through reviewing these applications? Anything you'd like me to cover or walk through a little bit slower? Because I'm happy to do that too if anybody is off the sled on anything I discussed earlier.
Hi, this is Don. Can you hear me?
I can, Don. Yeah.
That's a good presentation. But I had a question. It wasn't clear on the bonus questions.
Sure.
Are we supposed to answer those bonus questions too as we do our review?
Thank you for raising that question, because ultimately what those bonus questions are tied to are a specific part of the application. So I've navigated into one of our sample applications here. Towards the bottom of the application, the very final questions that you'll see are, is this actually something where the zip code that's being served is in a high food insecurity area? Yes or no? And again, for the qualified census tract, yes or no. So the applicants are going to tell you that for each application that's been submitted. So ultimately, when you get down to the bonus questions, you're just going to want to look at this and say, they said that they're not in a high food insecurity area. This should be no. And actually, these look like they're flip-flops. So we'll go ahead and make them actually aligned so that we have the census tract at the bottom on the evaluation form and on the application. But ultimately, you'll want this to be in line with what they've said here, no and no. So
yes,
it's an extra step for you guys to go ahead and say, like, I've reviewed this and I think that, based on what they've told me, they are eligible for bonus points. Ultimately, we want this to be something that that you guys have some say in addition to the applicants just saying, hey, give me some bonus points. So
Don, I'll just jump in to clarify a little bit. There's priority in serving, these are areas that have been identified as having greater need than other portions of the county. And so there's priority given to services in those counties. And they will say in their narratives if they are, and if they don't say, then your answer is no, and they won't be getting those points. But they should definitely say that they're addressing hunger in a high food insecurity zip code. They have been provided, they being the grant applicants, have been provided with those zip codes, with HUD maps where they can go down to street level to see if their client resides in one of those areas. So it should be something that's very clearly identified within the grant. And so the yes, no should be an easy lift for you all. If it's not, if it's questionable, then I would say they didn't do a very good job illustrating their service area or their service delivery. That those are questions that will be contained in the narrative of the grant proposals as you read through them.
And if that isn't clear, I would say this is something that you can go ahead and answer these to the best of your ability based on what the applicants have said, and also indicate any concerns that you have about how they've answered these questions. If you think that maybe they said yes for the qualified census tract, but then you have some concerns about whether or not that tracks with what they've actually said in their responses, you can go ahead and add that comment in here, and that will be available for Bonnie and Chelsea to actually take a look at too.
And we have another question from Carolyn. Okay, received the email that her grant reviewer submission has arrived. But does she need to do anything else? Actually, I think I need to do the next step, which is to make you a staff review.
Evaluator. Yep.
Evaluator, yes. So,
Yep.
so the next step there, Carolyn's on me, and I will do that. I'll go in and do that because there's several that are in there
Yeah.
now.
And Bonnie, we have a call tomorrow morning that we can, if you want to wait, and we can do all of those at the same time and send out an email to the group. That's certainly an option as well. So
That's
either
good to
way.
That
hear.
would be great. So,
That's
Carolyn,
good to
you'll
hear,
get an
but how do
email.
sorry. So I'll
Go
get an
ahead.
email? Sorry.
Yes, we'll go, Meredith and I will go through and we'll generate those emails tomorrow on, she and I are doing another, I am on the speed training for this program, so we have another call tomorrow.
Okay, and probably a silly question, but how do I get to this page you're showing us? You're showing us a very good how to do it, but how
Yep.
do I get there?
Once you've gotten the email from Bonnie tomorrow saying that you're in as an evaluator, you will be able to come back into the regular login that you've already created, and you'll see this drop down up at the top and be able to say, I'm going to actually be a staff evaluator now, and that will show you this page. The email that Bonnie's going to send out tomorrow will make sure that there are some instructions in there so that you know exactly how to go through and switch the view over, switch your permissions over in the site.
Great, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Did anyone have any more questions about the grant, the process and the methodology? Because I did blow through that pretty quickly. I wanted Meredith to have as much time as she needed to go through the technical, the meat and potatoes of everything, because I, will certainly be available to discuss further your questions about how this process works. And I just want to be clear, we'll guide you on the process, but you're making the evaluation. Staff is not making the evaluation.
This is Don. How many grants will we be looking at?
I'm planning for no more than 25 per reviewer. And it's still early yet. The grant closing day is this coming Sunday at midnight, actually at 11:59 p.m. to give everybody that last 11th hour chance to get their proposals in. And we'll know then exactly how many we have. We have around 20 right now. And we'll see. I'm expecting at least a few more.
And is each member of the team reviewing all of the grants coming in?
Okay.
Okay,
Yes, we want as much perspective as we can get.
that's good. Thank you.
Great question. Awesome.
I'm gonna mute because my dog is talking to me.
I was wondering whose
Yeah,
whose
that's
background
Jake.
was that?
That's Jake.
Well, I don't want to make you all sit with us and watch Bonnie and I sort of just stare into the cameras, but I do want to make sure that there's ample opportunity for questions. If this is sounding pretty straightforward to everybody, I would say once you get the email from Bonnie tomorrow and get a chance to poke around in the system as evaluators, there may be more questions that surface. At that point, please feel free to shoot Bonnie an email, give her a call. Bonnie, I don't know if you have a preference on modes of contact, but we'll make sure that we are moving you forward in terms of the how in the site with, as Bonnie alluded to, that the emphasis being on your judgment really being the thing that that is king here. So so we'll help you with the how, but the what is you guys have that.
Email is probably the best way to get in touch with me.
I think I heard a question too.
Yes,
Somebody had a
it's
question.
Carolyn. I do have a question.
Yeah, shoot, Carolyn.
So you said that all the applications are due on the 13th, and then I guess they're all uploaded to the system and we review them between the 14th and the 27th?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
So even after I send you that email tomorrow and turn you into a staff evaluator, there's not going to be anything ready to evaluate until the 14th.
Thank you.
Great. At which point you can expect probably another email to let everybody know, hey, there's actually some assignments. Go ahead and hop in when you've got a moment. Awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in via chat or mute. Bonnie, is there any final word that you want to put out there? Or do you want to pass the mic over to Jake?
No, he's said quite enough this
Okay.
afternoon.
Fair enough.
He's like, the sun is out. What's wrong with you? No, if anybody has any questions, it's best if you email them to me. And like I said, I can help you with the process. And I am going to be sending out with the email wall. Meredith, I have a question for you.
Sure.
When we send the emails out to the reviewers tomorrow, can I provide attachments in those emails, or should I plan to email them separately? Because there's a couple documents I'd like them to have for reference.
Sure. There is a way where we can go ahead and add attachments into the system and send those out. They are like standard documents. Everybody would be getting the same one as opposed to something that's specific to each reviewer. Yeah,
it's the equity guidance, and
perfect.
I also want to send a copy of my slides from today.
Awesome. Yeah, that's absolutely doable. One last thing, the recording for this, I will go ahead and share that over. Actually, that might be something that lands in your inbox, Bonnie, given that we're in your Zoom account. But that's something that that you all can expect to see in an email, if not that very email that we were just talking about, in an email later on in the next couple of days.
Anybody else for the good of the good? Don't want to keep you all. All right. Well, again, I just want to express my gratitude because, once again, volunteers step up to carry the load, and I am very grateful to you for doing this. And we want to get that money out there, get it to the clients who are in need, and COVID just doesn't seem to want to go away. And there's people who need some help, and you're gonna play a big role in facilitating people getting assistance. So, all right, well, I'll be in touch. Thank you very much.
Have a great day, everybody.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Chris.
That was a good presentation.
Thank you, Donna.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.